Delighted to be joined here today by Mark Bowden. This is a follow up to our first conversation where we talked about non-verbal communication. And if you haven't already watched that podcast or listened to the key points, definitely want to check out because Mark shared some incredibly insightful pieces around how to communicate as a leader. Today, we're going to delve into more the verbal side of communication, though, and thinking about how to effectively communicate as a leader to your people, to your clients, and particularly around broader change management. So, Mark, really delighted to be spending some more time with you.
Mark, good to be back with you. Thanks for having me around.
When you think about verbal communication, Mark, what are some of the fundamental concepts that you would share to introduce the topic?
Yeah, lovely. Well, this is true for any type of communication, whether you're communicating, say, for example, in the products maybe that you create, Mark, with computer code. You are coding and decoding. You're encoding and decoding. And so, just as in nonverbal, with verbal, you've got to understand what is the code that let's call it the computer, though the human brain is nothing like a computer, but let's just use that metaphor for want of a better one. What is the coding that that computer is looking for in order to trigger it into a certain result? Because if you at your end don't encode in the right way, you simply can't expect the decoding to get the result that you're looking for. And then in between your encoding and the decoding, there's some transmission that has to go on. And what's going to happen to your code during that transmission? Not only how can it get distorted and deleted along the way, but also what noise is coming in as well from every kind of angle that could infiltrate your code and mean that therefore at the other end, you're not getting the decoding and then the result that you're looking for. So look, bit of a technical answer there, but I think it's worth making that technical answer so that everybody here can understand when we talk about communication, we are not talking about anything soft here. We're talking about some really hard dynamic engineering that's going on that can be super not even complicated, complex in many situations. There's a lot of room for error. Errors can be extremely expensive. And if you're smart, especially when it comes to change management, Mark, if you're smart, you're going to pay a lot of attention to the communication that's going on, because that's probably where it's going to go horrifically wrong for you. Give me your feedback on that, Mark. What were you hearing there that makes sense to you from what you see?
What came to mind was the something somebody once taught me, which was around you don't get to control what the communication is just because you're the one saying it. It's actually the person on the other side who's listening who gets to decide what it is you've communicated. That was what I was thinking as you were talking that through.
Yeah, I like it. Like it. The way I put that is, look, the universe is happening in your head right now.
Yeah.
Now, it's happening in mine as well, and the universe is a real thing as well. You know, those electrons and protons are spinning enough that they turn into hard matter, and that hard matter is real. Yeah, but we're decoding it in the ways that we are. And if you're decoding it in much the same way as I am, well, there's going to be a lot of alignment. And change for us is going to be easier because we're seeing things in the same way. And so you're going to go, hey, Mark, I think we need some change here. And I'm going to go, yeah, I see it as well. You know, and I think the change, here's the promised land, here's where we should be moving to. And I'm going to go, yeah, Mark, you've hit it on the head. I mean, like, then you'll go, I think here's our strategy. And I'll go, wow, it's the way I was seeing it as well. But those same spinning protons and electrons, if you're decoding them in a different way than I am, yeah, we can be vastly misaligned in essentially the same universe, and we're going to come into conflict, and we are not going to understand each other. And look, to us trying to get aligned, I can do my bit. You know, somebody once said to me, "Look, Mark, the phone goes both ways. Like I can do my bit, at my end. Yeah. You've got to do your bit at your end. And there's some control that we just don't have in that phone wire in between. And we can investigate that. But ultimately, we can go, God, we don't run that phone wire that's happening here, you know? So I think you're absolutely spot on there. Like, you can handle your end, I can handle my end. There's stuff that we can't control, there's stuff that we can control. We've got to monitor ourselves not getting too upset by the stuff that we can't control. And we've got to put as much effort as we can, as much resource as we can, into managing our end of things and trying to understand each other's other end of things. When it comes to that thing of changing people's minds with a finite resource and finite time, you have to go, hang on, where is my resource best spent? Yeah, because I could blow all my money trying to change the minds of the people who are hardest to change. And good luck to you. And if you manage it, I want to know how. Like, come, I will buy your time to say, here's, Mark, how I did it. We didn't go for the kind of the not the maybe the bleeding edge of the curve, but we didn't go for those people who we knew with a bit of resource we could tip over the edge, and they had power and they would drag other people with them. We went for those people who were saying, there's not any way on earth I'm ever going in this direction. We spent all our money on them, and it was a brilliant piece of change management. If you manage to work out how to do that, I'm buying your time. History tells me that's not the way to do it. History tells me, I mean, Mark, you know better than I do, but history tells me it's picking exactly the right bunch of people and focusing day and night through multiple channels, often on a specific message for that group there.
How do you almost evolve the way you communicate, the way you talk, to reflect where you are in your journey of change management?
Yeah, well, look, that's interesting. So let's dig into that, because I think that'll be helpful for people listening right now in any kind of change that they're trying to deal with right now, whether it's a big organization or with their team, or even, family, friends, other organizations that they spend their time with. How does change work? Well, look, change happens, first of all, within cultures, within communities. Yeah. Mark, you're not working alone. Your organization is growing and growing and growing. And so you're always thinking about culture. You're always thinking about, hang on, it's not just me involved here. I can't do this on my own. I've got a whole bunch of people. So it's no good my mind being changed. I've got to change everybody's mind. We've got to influence everybody. With the one person, with you, I can go direct to you. And say I'm selling communication, okay? I'm selling communication, and being better as a communicator. So I've got to talk about what I'm selling. It's no good me trying to talk about something that I'm not selling, because that's going to be disingenuous. And you're just going to get disappointed, because we'll start on one conversation and then I'll try and move it round to my product, my service. And you'll go, well, hang on, that was a bit of a bait and switch on me. So I'm not gonna, bait you with something. I'm just gonna go, hey, Mark, when it comes to communication, okay, what is the biggest obstacle you're up against right now? Okay. So what I'm doing by that, and my guess is when I say that to you, Mark, you've got something in your head. It's not difficult for you, because look, I've chosen to sell something within an area where, look, it's human, it's innate. You have to do it. It's not nice. It's not nice to communicate. Like, you have to do it unless you want to be Johnny No Mates and achieve nothing. Okay, sure, you can live on your own with nobody. Yeah, you will die really fast. Okay, so you have to be able to communicate, even if it's just to go to the store and buy stuff. Your tin of beans, you have to be able to do it. And I don't know where you're getting the money from. Hey, maybe you inherited it. Okay, and you can live in a cave and go to the store every now and again, or maybe communicate with Amazon and they will deliver your tin of beans. You still have to do some communication. Okay, you still have to do it. So I say to you, what for you is most important when it comes to X? Okay. Now that question doesn't say, hey, is anything important to you? It doesn't say, hey, what keeps you up at night generally? It's not a question like that. It's what for you is most important. I could make it even tighter right now when it comes to, in this case, communication. My guess is when I say it to the audience, hey, for you right now, what for you is most important, is your biggest barrier when it comes to great communication. Yeah. The audience right now, you're thinking of something that you want to say back to me. Okay. So I'm eliciting from you your value hierarchy when it comes to the area that I can produce a solution for you on. So that's how we do it one-to-one. Now, why don't we do that? Why don't we walk into meetings and go, hey, Mark, so I'm just curious, we're having this meeting, my area is communication. What for you is the biggest barrier right now when it comes to great communication? Why don't we start a meeting like that? Or certainly, why isn't it the first question after we've done some value exchange around, hey, Mark, where are you right now? Where you living? What you up to? How's business? We do a little bit of value exchange around that, and then we get onto the business value exchange. I think we fear that, Mark, you're going to turn around to me and go, hey, Mark, nothing really. I mean, we've got it all sorted out. We're good. Thanks very much. I don't know. Not even sure why somebody told me to have this meeting with you. I think we're all good. To which I would have to go, yeah, it sounds like a waste of time. I mean, you're all good. Everything's brilliant. Hey, good luck to you. Well, at that point, I would go, listen, who do you know who's not in that position right now? Who's most coming to mind who needs to sort this out? So look, that's how I do it with an individual. We can come to groups in a moment, but first of all, give me your feedback on that little routine there.
What I think is interesting there is, while you suggest or table that that isn't the most productive meeting or conversation, I'd say maybe it is if that's true in the sense of, well, if they haven't got any issues with communication in this example, then let's save the next 30, 45 minutes talking about, in theory, a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
Right.
And then the other bit that sprung to mind was what you outlined there is about every single cold call that I accidentally let slip through my safety net and my gatekeepers, where somebody basically just pitches something without listening, without even suggesting that this might be a problem. And most people's impressions of cold calls is negative. So it sprung to mind for me there. Well, how do we effectively work out whether if what we're communicating is we've got one proposition or we've got two or three things that are going to compel somebody to do something? I'm a big believer in trying to find out as quickly as possible whether this is important to somebody on the other side of the table, because there are plenty of other people who do have this issue if this person doesn't have this issue.
No, I totally
But
agree.
how do we maybe learn some of the lessons from those bad experiences that we've had of the cold call scenario that sprung to mind to go, well, is there a way of us more delicately, more naturally having that conversation? And I like the question that you posed there around what's most important. I like questions that are going to be, what are the top three things that you're kind of trying to work on right now? I hate the question, what keeps you up at night? Because I used to flippantly answer young children screaming, and then I used to have to revise that because my kids are now a lot older than that. But it's around trying to find the right balance where it feels like a more natural conversation and we're just between us trying to work out, hey, I have these skills, do you have these problems, without it feeling like it's transactional or too salesy or some of the cliched environments that we've maybe had those bad experiences. How do you, as an accounting firm, make sure when you're talking to your clients about change or about business that you align your language, your way of working as closely as you can to your clients to make it feel like you're one of them?
Well, first of all, you've got to learn the language, haven't you? And I think, if I go back to noticing what you've been doing, you are showing up at events or creating events where people will get to talk about their successes and their problems. Naturally, you bring all the people together, and you go, hey, let's talk about, running an accounting business in a modern fashion. And you're right, you're not necessarily bringing the laggards. You're going, can we give it a more innovation title? Can we put it around innovation so that more innovative people, more bent towards that, are more likely to come up? Yeah. And they're going to go, hey, here's what we've been doing and we've really succeeded. And here's what I'm really up against. And you're just out there listening to what they have to say and joining in a little bit and going, hey, so you're talking about I notice you used that word. Let me play it back. So you're getting comfortable with the words. Yeah. Because you can't lead change unless you can manage your own discomfort around it. Yeah. So and I'm sure you've experienced this, Mark, especially going into the US. You're having to, if you want to help people change, you're having to manage yourself around your own discomfort with change, with using different language, with noticing the scale of the US, noticing the customs, the traditions of those industries, noticing how they feel about government, how they feel about being a listed stock, how they feel about being an entrepreneurial group, which is going to be, in many cases, radically different from how that might be seen in the US, in the UK, or other markets that you're doing. And so, look, I'm going to give a very weird analogy and metaphor here, but I personally like it. I want you to think about the film The Exorcist, okay? And because there's a demon involved in that has taken over a young child, okay? And my understanding of demons, what demons represent are the problems that we get obsessed with, and they overtake our lives. We're so obsessed. In fact, my understanding of the word demon comes from diamond, which is a shiny object. Yeah. And so it just hits the light, and its light obsesses you, and you get caught in it and obsessed with a certain root on it. Now, in order to exercise the demon, okay, to get it out, to get past that problem, first of all, and you'll notice in The Exorcist, the demon starts talking in different languages, and everybody has to deal with the thing of like, what's it doing? What, it's talking Latin now. Oh, like it's gone to Spanish. It's gone to French now. So they have to manage this thing of it. It'll go to a whole different bunch of languages. That it's not talking in the same way as you talk. So you've got to manage your discomfort around this different language. Now, the other thing, in order to exercise the demon, you'll notice in The Exorcist and in demonology in general, is you must know its name, and it must tell you its name. For you to have any control of the demon, it must tell you its name. And so you have to elicit from the demon its name. Yeah. And it was always really annoyed when you trick it into like, oh, I've just told you my name. Damn, you've got control of me right now. It's the same in those events that you set up, which essentially are an exorcism of sorts. You're going to bring everybody together who has the demon. You're going to get them talking about really good things, success, and what they want to achieve, because ultimately at some point they will get obsessed by the demon, which is the thing that's stopping them having the wonderful life that they'd like to have. Yeah. And they will talk in different languages, and you'll be there going, what the hell are they talking about? Like, I didn't even know that thing existed, that I don't even understand what they're saying. And you might need, some support to go, hey, what are they talking about? So some kind of insider who's going, oh yeah, when they're talking about this, it's the same as you say with this. It's a translator of some sort. But what you want to be listening out for is that point where they name that problem, they name that demon. And the moment you can say that back to them is the moment when you have now their attention. Yeah. And you can now start that process of change, because you know what the obsessive problem is that they believe they have, or they truly have, because sometimes they don't have it. They just think they have it. And you're able to go, oh yeah, no, we've met that demon before, and we will get rid of that. But the strange thing is, what that then reveals is the real problem underneath this, and we will deal with that as well.
Are there any other practical tips that you think we could give people, 2, 3, 4 suggestions or things that you've seen effective communicators using as ways of opening up a conversation, communicating more effectively in this area around change and communication, Mark?
Yeah, lovely. Look, let me hit you with this one, because I think it's one solution to what you're up against right now, I think, which is, with the best will in the world, Mark, the organization will inevitably become so big and so differentiated, in that there will be many different groups within what you hope to be a company culture, but ultimately it's a company, not a culture. Yeah. And ultimately, you will not speak everybody's language and be up at the same times as everybody else and know the same world as them. And it's just a fact of large organizations. And so one of the solutions that other people use around this is to know that they cannot be the communicator to everybody, but they can work with influencers and, let's say, deputies who are inserted within those parts of the organization, and give them deputization and somewhat a trusted free rein to go, how can you pass on the message to this group? Because I don't think I'm ever going to really be able to touch them and communicate to them in the way that you can, because you're part of them, them, you're part of our team as well, and us, and you're in a perfect position to be that golden bridge between the two of us, in a way that I'm just, with the best will in the world, I'm never going to be able to achieve that. So how do you start to build, and here's what I've been doing with other organizations, a communication culture? Because that can be cultural. We can decide as a bigger organization the way in which we communicate and how we deputize and I guess scale our communication, knowing that the culture with which the communication is made over here may not be exactly the culture over here, but it's a company culture. We always really want to communicate at our best level. So that for me is that scalability piece, is know and trust your limitations, and know and trust the people around you who could do a better job than you, which you already know for other work that you used to do. And you're like, no, I can't scale that at all. You already know it for that. It's just knowing it for this. So before I move on to any other tools and techniques, give me your feedback on that, Mark.
Really like it. And I think that it points to the topic we talked about before around scalability versus tailoring. Now, what we often see in any firm, professional services firm, accounting firm that's trying to implement new technology or change, they'll often establish what's commonly referred to as a champions network, a group of people who are going to be involved in leading this. And those people will be of varying different experience levels in the organization, and they'll be almost your first point of call to say, right, that person's the person you go to if you get stuck.
Yeah.
Now, what I think is maybe underutilized based on what you're sharing here is, how do we make it clearer that those champions have a role in both re-emphasizing the message that's being delivered from the top as the consistent, scalable message, but also perhaps tailoring that message
Yeah.
to make it more connecting with that group? So, common example might be, well, hey, we've got one partner who's the senior person, who's the person leading the change, and he or she will be sending out some email communications, some Teams messages, some videos, etc. But then we're going to have one champion in each of the office locations
Yes.
that we have, who's going to be the point of contact locally. Well, how much is that champion or that point of contact? How much do they know their job is also to reiterate, to re-emphasize, and to tailor the communication coming from the top? And or how much do they sit there and go, well, the partner at the top sent the email, right? Everybody read it, so I'm going to proceed on the basis that everybody's read it, everybody understands it, and I'll just stay silent. I think that's a powerful takeaway here for people leading change, to go, empower your people to re-emphasize, reiterate, and to tailor the communication so as they can bring it into their tribe and make sure that the tone at the top is filtered down to the people across the broader business.
Yeah, that is absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Because they will need no training in how to do that. They'll be reading the message from the top going, well, it really should have said X. Really should have. But and if they're not empowered and trusted, they will just go, yeah, leave it. I mean, I know it's not going to hit. In fact, they will go, yeah, I know that's going to go in the exact opposite direction to the way they wanted that to go. Yeah, but I mean, why is it? What's it my role? Well, you got to go. Hey, here's your role. Here is your role. Is the message will go out to all. Yeah, but your role is to go. Hey, what they really mean is, what they're really saying here is X. Yeah, and you know, if you can empower those people, trust them, empower them, you know, give them, and by trusting and empowering them, essentially give them a free rein, you know, to manage your risk. Because the risk here is the performance goes in the absolute opposite direction that you thought. And we've seen this in organizations. You've seen this, Mark. I've seen this, where they go, well, we sent out the message and they're doing, the weird thing is they're doing the exact opposite. You know, we told them to double capacity and they stopped capacity completely. Yeah. And we're actually now in a negative. It's like, yeah, well, yeah, that's what happens when you miscommunicate. Yeah. That is a classic. And what classically happens is they go, we think they're kind of just stupid. Yeah. Or so they either go, they're either stupid or they're against us. We think actually they are plotting to take us down. No, they were just taking the instruction. You gave them the instruction in their language. You gave them the instruction to down tools and stop. Yeah, that's what, you know, and there would have been a go-between that went, yeah, they don't mean that, but I'm not empowered to do anything. So I'm just going to have to let them see what happens. Then they're going to come to me and they're going to go, well, what are these people stupid and against us? And I'm going to have to go, yeah, actually, no. Here's what happened. Then the hierarchy are going to go, well, we didn't say that. And I'm going to have to go, yeah, well, you kind of did, you know, you kind of did. So, well, okay, we'll send another message. Now I'm going to have to go, okay. They'll send another message and it'll make it doubly worse. And then they'll come back again. Are these people so stupid? They're not stupid. They are the best in the world at what they do, actually. It's just you keep sending them. Anyway, I won't drag on that anymore. But ultimately, we have seen this time and time again, have we not, Mark?
We have. Let's keep going. I like this. So, a few tactical areas. Have you got any others in mind, Mark, where you go, okay, there's an area that people can commonly improve their communication style?
Yeah, yeah. Again, this is gonna sound quite maybe almost theoretical, but for me, it's just technical, and it may not seem practical to people. But believe me, this is given to you as the most practical thing you can ever do. Yeah, and I got this from my son's Montessori teacher many years ago. Um, and she was telling me this story. She was saying, a child had come up to her and said, "Hey, so and so over there, they keep bothering me." And she said, "Well, go and tell them not to. Like, go and tell them, it's bothering you, and you'd like them to stop." So kid goes off and does the communication. Kid comes back, says, "Yeah, they're still bothering me." She says, "Well, go and tell them again. Go and tell them again." Yeah, so off kid goes. Yeah, comes back. Yep, still happening. She said, "Go back. Tell them again. Tell them again." Yeah, off the kid goes. Yeah, and that was the last that she heard of it. Okay, so in that case, it took 3 deliveries of the same message from the same person, exactly the same message through this what we would call the same channel, same messenger, same encoding, same channel to the same decoder 3 times for the message to get elected to the top of the pile to go, "We will pay any attention to this." It needed 3 times. Yeah. So if you're sending out one newsletter with this information in, like, if you come to me and go, "Well, I sent it and no change," I'm like, "Yeah, well, obviously, like, send it again, like, do it." So you need to send the message multiple times through multiple channels, potentially multiple encodings, yeah, to be decoded by multiple decoders. Yeah. So that you sent one email. Yeah. I'm gonna say to you, yeah, that isn't gonna work. That's not gonna work. Yeah. Now it's horrible because you're now going, damn, this communication thing is expensive. It's like, yeah, it is. It's really at best, in the best case, it's going to be complicated and expensive. Yeah, in most cases, it's going to be complex and really expensive. So number one is, is that really the message you want to be sending? Is there a more important one? Like go with your most, like, really prioritize. What do you really want to get done? Yeah, because if you're to get that done through communication, like, it's going to be complex and expensive. So pick your battle and pick the top battle. Don't pick one that you'd be happy if you won it. And when people start to know this, this is why you might come to your leadership with, "Hey, we really need to get this heard," and they go, "No, no, no, no." You're like, "Man, this is the burning thing." They're like, "No, no, no," because hopefully they have picked their battle. They know how complex and expensive it is, and at the moment you don't rank. That's not that you can't rank. Keep going back, keep making your case, and we could talk another time about, well, here's how you make your case. Here's how you elect it to the top of their hierarchy. Yeah. But no, if you've got decent leadership, they've picked their battle, and that's why they keep drumming on, if they're good at their job, at this one thing, because they've decided, they could be wrong, by the way, they've decided this is the change that would have the biggest impact. If they get that change, they will soon find out whether the impact was worth it or not. But pick the battle and communicate day and night through as many channels as you possibly can afford, as much as you can possibly afford. Now, you and I know, Mark, like, there are budgets and there are channels, and, like, you're not going to be able to afford everything, and you're not going to be able to afford day and night. So now you're making choices. You're narrowing it down. And it's painful. So make good choices. Make good guesses about that narrowing down. Again, could feel a little bit less tactical, but for me, that is super tactical. That's like baseline tactics.
It's multi-channel, it's multiple different voices, it's
Yeah.
trying to vary up the same message and spin it different ways. It's things like you might be talking about something on social media that's the same thing you need to say internally, that's the same thing that you need to have on your slide for your keynote. The more you can get like the consistency and the common thread across your communication, builds more authenticity. It builds more like a natural, I know what the notes are in this message. And I just say, if you're not tired of doing it, you're not doing it enough.
Yeah. Look, and I want to give people a example of that. I had my way of delivering the message. Yeah. And my hope would be that listeners and watchers were like, oh, Mark, I really get what you're saying there. I really get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great, great, great. My hope is that. The reality is that I'm not for everybody. Okay. And still you're listening, but some of you might have been thinking, oh, Mark, you don't have to drone on. I mean, you could have said that much more simply, or if only you'd have said this, you could have got to the point earlier, or there'd be some people out there. My hope is there isn't, but the reality is there's some people out there, and thanks for staying with this, by the way, for all those people who are like, I just don't get it. I don't get what Mark's talking about. But because I say to you, Mark, I say, hey, Mark, give me your feedback on that. Give me you then give the same message, but from your angle, from your language. And I was listening to you deliver it back, going, oh God, that's a much better way of he was much more succinct in saying that. He put in a really good specific example for for an organization, for the industry. Oh, that was I should do a lot more of that. But I mean, in the end, I'm often quite a theorist, and I'm hoping other people will make it more practical, more tactical. So by us having a conversation about it, we get two voices. I mean, look, and quite rightly, some people would say, hey, two guys called Mark from England, that's not particularly diverse. And you're right, in one way it isn't, but in another way, I'm here going, oh, that is radically better way of staging the idea that I'm doing it, so I can see the difference, even if it's just me. So look, try and get in the communications that you're making, try and get more conversations happening around those. Yeah, potentially led conversations in many ways, so they don't veer off the messaging that you're trying to give. But by having more conversation, you get more diverse voices, more diverse language being used, more of the same demon being called by a different name for different people. Yeah, more of it getting exercised. Yeah, and more change likely to happen. And what does that mean? It means sometimes I have to give up my leadership of the message and just lead the conversation, or at some point just step out and go, you listen, this is great. You keep on talking about this. Keep on without me in the room. Keep this going without me here.
Let's bring the conversation to a close. This has been fantastic. And I'll ask you, is there anything on the topic of verbal communication that leaders who are leading change could benefit from your insights that we haven't already covered in this conversation?
Yeah, well, I think I said it back there, which is, look, it's communication is complex and expensive. So doing it well, it's really complex. And it's so much more expensive than you ever hoped it would be. Yeah. So you got to understand that. Yeah. And because it's complex and expensive, it cannot be perfect. Yeah. It cannot be perfect. It's you striving for it to be more than good enough. More than good enough. And if you strive for perfection in it, um, you'll never release the communication, or you'll never release it big enough and wide enough. And you'll never release it to other people and go, hey, take it further and you do your best with that for that bunch of people over there. Because you'll be like, oh, I don't know. Should we give it to them? It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. The moment you said, let's try and do a big change, you sacrificed perfection immediately. Yeah, let's try and tell everybody about this. Yeah, you just sacrificed perfection. Yeah. The nearest you'll ever get to perfect is an email, and it will take you too long. You'll be like, why am I spending all this time? It's just a damn email. Yeah, because there you can send code, and you pretty much know the same code as you sent will arrive at the other side. Now you don't know the decoding of it, but you can not put your foot in your mouth. You can hold back. You can go, let's test this a little bit. But again, now you spent too long. You spent too long. So as a leader, as a salesperson, you are trying to affect change. It's expensive. It's complex. You just need to be more than good enough. Forget about being perfect. Get the message out. See what happens to it. Take note of what the results were. Get it out again, or get a different one out. But don't change your message, your best go at the message, until you've tried that message more than a few times. I do see people as well. They're like, that didn't work. We'll change the message. It's like, you only sent it once. It's like, send it again. Send it again. They didn't hear it. There's my last thought on that, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. I think it was it Churchill who said, "Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress." And so,
Yeah.
fantastic way to close this conversation. Applies far more broadly than just communication, but absolutely a great way to close. Mark, the insights, the wisdom that you shared here are incredibly valuable. Thank you very much for taking the time to share that with me and share that with my audience. I've really enjoyed our conversation here today.